quiet too. Well, I wonder, who-be-doo-hoo, who wrote the book of love? Chapter 1 says you love her with all your heart. Chapter 2, you tell her you never ever go apart. In Chapter 3, remember the meaning of romance. In Chapter 4, you break up, but you give it just one more chance. Well, I wonder, who-be-doo-hoo, who wrote the book of love? Tell me, oh, who wrote the book of love? I want to know the answer. Was someone from afar? Well, I wonder, who-be-doo-hoo, who wrote the book of love?
Okay, when I come back, I have some really rare footage that I'm really excited to share. So I'll see you in a bit.
Big Sandy's Eclectic American Countdown Show. In just a moment, we're going to take a special look at the pride of Fort Fairfield, Maine, easy for you to say, Dick Curless. But first, the returning champion of honky tonk, and this one goes out to you, Mr. Lopez, the great Ray Price.
Now here's the Cherokee cowboy Ray Price to sing you a great song called Heart Over Mind.
I love you so much that I can't leave you, even though my mind tells me I should. But when you come back and tell me you still love me, all my thoughts of leaving do no good. You got me heart over mind, worried all the time, knowing you will always be the same. You'll keep hurting me, I know, but I still can't let you go, 'cause my heart won't let my love for you change. Friends tell me they see you out with others, and in my heart I try hard to forget. But when you come back and tell me you still love me, I still hope there's some chance for us yet. You got me heart over mind, worried all the time, knowing you will always be the same. You'll keep hurting me, I know, but I still can't let you go, 'cause my heart won't let my love for you change.
All you big and burly men who roll the trucks along, better listen, you'll be thankful when you hear my song. You have really got it made if you're all in goods, any place on earth but those Springfield woods. It's a stretch of road up north in Maine that's never, ever, ever seen a smile. If they buried all the truckers lost in them woods, there'd be a tombstone every mile. Count them all. There'd be a tombstone every mile. Well, you got my heart a feeling you junkies below the flood. They get mighty, mighty bumpy. Tell me, pretty mama, have I filled your heart with hate? With someone new you're affiliated and they're making me feel like I'm outdated. If I don't love you, grits ain't groceries, and that's the name of poor man's plate. Well, now, let me know, honey, tell me what's the matter, let me know what's on your mind. If I don't love you, ain't I kind of Texas? The reason I'm there all the time. I don't want to sound like I'm demanding, I just want to get a little understanding. If I don't love you, it ain't groceries, and that's the name of poor man's plate.
Got a mess of blues on my mind, and at least a million miles behind me, and all that I've got between me and Pauper's Hill is a wrinkled, crinkled wadded dollar bill. Lake Michigan wind sure is cold, and I need me a jacket for my shoulder. I can get one at the surplus store, cheap cotton twill, with my wrinkled, crinkled wadded dollar bill. For I'm not bound and never will be to a wrinkled, crinkled, wadded dollar bill.
Well, I'm at home a-working and a-slaving this way. You're out of misbehaving, spending all of your pay on wine, women, and song. While I'm a-making beds, you're out a-making time. You rob my piggy bank and spend my last 10 dime on wine, women, and song. Well, one of these nights you're gonna come home. You'll find it's coming home to you. You see what you've done and what's good for one, it's also good for two. When you're in the doghouse of that mangy old putt, you may start to thinking and giving up your wine, woman, and song. Well, one of these nights you're gonna come home. You'll find it's coming home to you. You see what you've done and what's good for one, it's also good for two. When you're in the doghouse with that mangy old pup, you may start to thinking and giving up your wine, woman, and song.
The honky-tonk girl herself, and the honky-tonk hero of many, Loretta Lynn, still one of the greats. Big Sandy's Eclectic American Countdown Show.
Hello, music lovers. You've tuned in today to watch DEKE Dickerson's Hillbilly Fever. Have you any idea what you are in for? Hillbilly is all about having fun, just as long as it's combined with great musicianship and great musicians. That's what we have on tap for you on today's Eclectic American Roots Hillbilly Fever Volume 2. Now, you don't have to be a hee-haw fan to appreciate this particular brand of roots music, but it helps. On today's show, DEKE Dickerson goes wild with his hillbilly history in an episode he calls Cuttin' Loose.
mixed up a chum. Fire coal got in the heel of his shoe. Bless you, honey, how the ashes flew. Get out of the way, oh, that's good. Out of the way, oh, that's good. Out of the way, oh, that's good. Get your leg, get the fun.
Along for the ride is a pair of serious musicologists. Chuck Mead, the BR549 band leader, was also the music director for the Tony Award-winning $1 Million Quartet on Broadway, and currently leads his band, the Grassy Knoll Boys. And the professor, Nashville's own Chris Scruggs, a multi-instrumentalist who also was a member of BR549, and now tours with Marty Stewart's Fabulous Superlatives. Best name for a band ever. Here they are performing together on the Marty Stewart Show.
And Chris Scruggs, Chuck Mead, cannot thank you guys enough for coming by. All the superlatives, we love you guys.
We love you too, Marty. Thanks for asking.
Big stars. Do you feel like a little hillbilly smash right now?
Let's do a little boogie woogie.
Wish you would. Come on.
Well, Cherokee chief as he dances along does the Indian boogie to a white man's song. Hey, ho, Alina. Hey, ho, Alina. Hey, ho, Alina. Hey, ho, Alina. Singing, hey, ho, Alina. Whoa, whoa, the winter night. Hey. Well, he dances over here and he dances over there and he dances with a woman called a standing bear. Hey, ho, Alina. Hey, ho, Alina. Hey, ho, Alina. Hey, ho, Alina. Singing, hey, ho, Alina. Whoa, whoa, the winter night. Hey. Oh, get him on, yeah. Well, he dances on the hill and he dances on the rock, but he keep on shaking that old Johnny out. Hey, ho, Alina. Hey, ho, Alina. Hey, ho, Alina. Hey, ho, Alina. Singing, hey, ho, Alina. Whoa, whoa, the winter night. Hey. Well, he's sinking to the hills and he's sinking to the clouds and the tom-tom beat is so big and proud. Hey, ho, Alina. Hey, ho, Alina. Hey, ho, Alina. Hey, ho, Alina. Singing, hey, ho, Alina. Whoa, whoa, the winter night. Hey, Chris, play that biscuit bowl.
Now let's meet our host. DEKE Dickerson has been carrying the hillbilly torch since he was 13, playing rockabilly in his hometown of Columbia, Missouri. After moving to Los Angeles at the age of 22, Dickerson carved out a nice niche for himself playing in his primary band, DEKE Dickerson and the Echophonics. He also had several side projects. Dickerson has provided rootsy music for a slew of television shows, not to mention movie projects, including scoring the music for the cult favorite, Johnny Knoxville produced, The Wild and Wonderful Whites of West Virginia. Dickerson has made a name for himself with his own signature guitar, manufactured by the Hallmark Guitar Company. He writes for several guitar magazines and has 2 books published. This is a man who takes hillbilly seriously. Dickerson believes hillbilly music and its lifestyle is not a weird retro thing to be laughed at. No. He calls it the great music of the American 20th century experience. Rock and roll, rockabilly, western swing, rhythm and blues, surf, garage, and punk. Many of us know hillbilly is every bit as vital and important as jazz or classical music. It just hasn't gotten its due yet. Ladies and gentlemen, here is author, writer, singer, songwriter, and hillbilly artist, DEKE Dickerson.
Thank you, Chris, and howdy, everybody. This is your host, Deke Dickerson here, and I'm happy to be back hosting the second Hillbilly Fever edition here of the Eclectic American Roots series. And boy, we are going to have some fun today. And that actually is our central theme of this week's Hillbilly Fever, is cutting loose and having fun. Now, I know a lot of you are very well educated about country music and all of its different little side genres, you know, Western swing, honky-tonk, Americana, bluegrass, etc. And some of you may ask, what exactly is hillbilly? What is different about hillbilly music than regular country music? Well, there's a lot of overlap. But I will say that hillbilly music is probably the most pure, the roughest, the most primitive, just right back to the roots of real American country music. I mean, this is where it started. And when you go back to the hills, back in, Arkansas, Virginia, any place in the Appalachians, man, those people, they like to have fun. They like to cut loose and just have a good time. And so that is what this week's series is all about. I have some very special friends coming up. As Chris mentioned, we got Professor Chris Scruggs and Chuck Mead. They'll be here to play some videos and give their own take on hillbilly music. As will I. I'm going to be playing a lot of different stuff. And, I'd like to start by saying that, hillbilly in a lot of our minds was created by our media, the film and the newspapers and television and things like that. And even though hillbilly music goes right back to, pre-recorded music, back to the 1700s and the 1800s probably, most of America and most of the world didn't get really turned on to it until they started making movies and broadcasting things like the Grand Ole Opry on the radio that really sort of reinforced this old-time hillbilly image. And so the first clip that we're going to play is from a movie called the Grand Ole Opry. It was from the early 1940s. And boy, it's got all of your hillbilly imagery in there, along with some very, very important country music stars like Roy Acuff and Uncle Dave Macon. So let's go play this clip to get us started from the Grand Ole Opry.
Swing 'em up and swing 'em down, swing your partner, roll around. Swing ma, swing pa, swing that girl from Arkansas. Swing her high, swing her low, turn her loose and let her go. Lady round lady, gent solo, lady round gent also. Couple of four all the way round, big foot up and little foot down. Cat in the barn, rat in his mouth, grab your gal and head us south. All around the old grapevine, you swing yours and I'll swing mine.
Okay, now, I know that some of you people out there are saying, Deke, you're always talking about being a hillbilly and all that, but man, you live in California. What do you know about being a hillbilly? You aren't a hillbilly. Well, let me tell you something. I am a hillbilly. My oldest relative that I know of, Griffith Dickerson, moved to Virginia in the 1600s. And his son, Moses Dickerson I, now there was many Moses Dickersons along the way, but Moses Dickerson I fought in the Revolutionary War against the British, and the newly formed American government gave him a plot of land in Floyd County, Virginia in the 1780s. So the Dickerson clan can go all the way back to the 1780s in Floyd County, Virginia. Now, the reason I'm telling you this story is because my parents, they moved away from Floyd County. They were the first ones to ever move away and go to college. And when I was about 12 or 13 years old, I started getting into hillbilly music. I really liked it. And I found an album by Homer and Jethro, and I loved Homer and Jethro. I thought they were just the best. And my mom came into my room, and she goes, "What are you doing? What are you doing?" I said, well, I'm playing some Homer and Jethro. Now, I think it would have been better for me if she had caught me with some girly magazines, but no, she was very upset that she caught me listening to Homer and Jethro because she said, Homer and Jethro, that sort of stuff is why we moved away from the hills. So all I can say is you can take a boy out of the hills, but you can't take the hills out of the boy. And we are going to play you a Homer and Jethro clip right now. In fact, this was one of the major oversights in the last episode of Hillbilly Fever that we did, is that we didn't have any Homer and Jethro clips. So let's listen to them right now, doing a little number called I'm Missing My Wife's Cooking.
Well, thank you a lot for your sympathy. We just know 2 songs, and we always sang one of them first. So we'd like to do the other one right now. We're gonna do one here called I Miss My Wife's Cooking Whenever I Can. Aching hearts and breaking hearts and lonely, sad, forsaken hearts have made all love songs sound the same to me. But such corny lines, my dear, won't be whispered in your ear when I croon my brand new love song tenderly. Well, my lungs are plumb collapsing over you, and I'm a-getting me a stomach ulcer too. If you ever treat me mean, it is sure to bust my spleen, and my blood veins would be miserable too. When you smile, it fills my tonsils full of joy. Please don't use my adenoids for just a toy. I'm in love from A to Izzard, so don't trifle with my gizzard, 'cause I've gone and lost my liver dear to you. I'll get it. Come in now, Jethro.
We call this second part of this song, Get Out of the Barn, Grandma. You're too old to be horsing around.
I hear silent love calls when I gaze into your eyeballs. My eardrums beat for you alone, it's true. I love the way you giggle and can make your little ears wiggle, and no one else pops bubble gum like you. Oh, my lungs are plumb collapsing over you, and I'm a-getting me a stomach ulcer too. If you ever treat me mean, it is sure to bust my spleen, and my blood veins would be miserable too. When you smile, it fills my tonsils full of joy. Please don't use my adenoid for just a toy. I'm in love from A to Izzard, so don't trifle with my gizzard, 'cause I've gone and lost my liver dear to you.
I love Homer and Jethro, man. Those guys were so good and amazing musicians too. I mean, if you watch, Jethro Burns was a master mandolin player, and Homer Haynes was an incredible jazz, swing, rhythm guitar player, just a brilliant musician. But they had such a great chemistry of doing this hillbilly thing on stage. So I was proud to bring some Homer and Jethro to Hillbilly Fever number 2 here. Now next, I want to keep with our theme of cutting loose and having fun. And so I know that we showed some String Bean, the famous banjo player, on the last episode, but I just want to show you what happens when you take a guy like String Bean and you put a rock and roll song in his hands like Long Tall Sally. This is just the best sort of hillbilly mess you could possibly imagine. It is just 100% cutting loose, having fun, just letting it all go. So here we go. String Bean doing Long Tall Sally.
Sally built speed, God, about everything in Uncle John Eagle, baby. Hey, baby. Ooh, baby, have me talking now. Go tell Aunt Mary about Uncle John. Said a lot of people are having a lot of fun, oh, baby. Hey, baby. Baby, have me a time tonight.
All right, that was String Bean with Long Tall Sally. Man, that was some crazy rock and roll hillbilly banjo work right there, and I love those tailored overalls. Gonna pass it back to Chris Burkhardt now, and then we're gonna bring on our first guest, Professor Chris Scruggs.
You don't spend your entire life in the hillbilly music world without making some pretty good friends. Deke's relationship with the professor, Chris Scruggs, goes way back.
Mr. Chris Scruggs, he's already kind of given you the intro here, but I do want to say that I consider myself a fan and a scholar of country music and hillbilly, but I'm always astounded at how much this next guy knows. He's younger than me, but boy, he soaks it all in like a sponge. So let's turn it over to Professor Chris Scruggs and get his take on what is hillbilly music and what does he like about it and what is he going to show us today.
Well, all you wanna do is sit around and pout. Well, now I've had enough, and so I'm getting out. I'm leaving now. I'm leaving now. I'm a long gone daddy. I don't need you anyhow. I've been in the doghouse for so doggone long. When I get a kiss, I think there's something wrong. I'm leaving now. I'm leaving now. I'm a long gone daddy, I don't need you anyhow. Well, I'll go find a gal that wants to treat me right. You go get yourself a man who wants to fight. I'm leaving now. I'm leaving now. I'm a long gone daddy, I don't need you anyhow.
Thank you, Deke. Thank you, Christopher, for having me back on the show. Folks, I'm Chris Scruggs, and I'm here to answer Deke Dickerson's question. What is hillbilly music? Well, to me, I'd say basically it's just good old country music. But coming from that era when country music didn't take itself too seriously. Country music was still just a big old party. It wasn't too self-aware. It wasn't trying to sell itself to the outside world. And when it did, it didn't mind poking fun at itself, you know, and making it all into a joke. You know, it was a big party back then, country music. It wasn't this big billion-dollar industry like it is today. It was regional music, you know. It was a much smaller business, and the people who made it had fun with it. You know, they were almost like vaudeville people. You know, they came out of that old world of tent shows and show business that was just, you know, about entertaining people and not taking yourself too seriously. It was also very family oriented, you know. Family as in families played music together. You know, somebody from this band might be married to somebody from, you know, from that singing family, you know, like how Carl Smith was married to June Carter, or Dale Potter was married to Anita Carter, and then Dale Potter went to play fiddle for Carl Smith, you know, that sort of thing. But it was also just family in that the people who played it, you know, stuck together like family because they were all show people. You know, they had that same thing in common. They were kind of outcasts. They did a weird thing that didn't really fit in outside of the Grand Ole Opry and their little barn dance circuit. The video that I've picked to kick this off with is a great video from the 1950s. It's Gordon Terry. He's trying to play his fiddle, but June Carter won't stop harassing him. And they seem to be having a lot of fun. I don't know how much of it was scripted, and I don't know how much of it is just off the cuff, but boy, it sure is a party. My good buddy, Ranger Doug Green of Riders in the Sky, the idol of American youth, in addition to being a fine country singer and guitar player and yodeler, is also a published author and one of country music's great historians, right up there with any of the rest of them. And he is quoted as saying that the reason why the cowboy craze swept over country music in the 1940s and the 1950s was, you know, in the early days of country music, and for instance, the Grand Ole Opry, it was all about wearing overalls and check shirts and blacking out your teeth and, you know, kind of playing up the hillbilly thing. But as time went on, you started to see this influx of cowboy attitude into not just Western music, but also into country music. And Ranger Doug says that the reason for that was every little kid wanted to grow up to be a cowboy. Nobody wanted to grow up to be a hillbilly. And these people were hillbillies. They weren't ashamed of it, but at the same time, there was something heroic about adopting the cowboy persona. And in this next video that I've selected for you all here today, we're going to see a couple hillbillies. Boy, they sure are. Webb Pierce and Carl Smith, along with a fellow from out west, Marty Robbins, all three Grand Ole Opry stars. They had starred in a movie that was produced by Al Ganaway, who also produced this Grand Ole Opry clip we're about to watch. The movie was called Buffalo Guns, and it starred the three of those guys as singing cowboys. And I thought this was just a fitting way to sort of tie in the hillbilly world with the cowboy world, because these guys were just as at home, you know, singing country music at the Grand Ole Opry, idolizing Roy Acuff, but at the same time, they also grew up going to see Gene Autry shows. And I just love it at the end when Carl Smith does a little twirl with his pistol. Here we go with Marty Robbins, Webb Pierce, and Carl Smith singing Webb's big hit, Why, Baby, Why?
These three fellas, Webb and Carl and Marty, they've been out in Hollywood making motion pictures and singing and riding horses and shooting Indians and all that kind of stuff. And maybe for the first time in history, they're singing together. So we'd like for you folks to see them right now, if you would please, the Three Musketeers of the West.
Tell me why, baby, why, baby, why, baby, why you make me cry, baby, cry, baby, cry, baby, cry. I can't help but love you till the day that I die, so tell me why, baby, why, baby, why, baby, why. But I got a crew I want to pick with you, just like last time when the feathers flew. You're running wild, kicking up your heels, leaving me home with a handful of bills. Tell me why, baby, why, baby, why, baby, why you make me cry, baby, cry, baby, cry, baby, cry. I can't help but love you till the day that I die, so tell me why, baby, why, baby, why, baby, why. But I don't know, but I've heard say, every little dog is gonna have his day. You better pay attention, don't you dare forget, just forget. Tell me why, baby, why, baby, why, baby, why you make me cry, baby, cry, baby, cry, baby, cry. I can't help but love you till the day that I die, so tell me why, baby, why, baby, why, baby, why.
Now, I realize that a lot of people, when they think of hillbilly music, they think about music that comes from Appalachia. They think about the music from Tennessee, Kentucky, West Virginia, that whole part of the world. But, you know, the tradition of what led to, you know, this hillbilly music, this American country music, there's a common thread in a lot of different regions. And a lot of people would say, well, Western swing isn't hillbilly music, it's too sophisticated. Well, a lot of times it is. A lot of times it is a little more uptown. But we need to remember, you know, that the origins of Western swing music were in frontier fiddle music. You know, Bob Wills was a frontier fiddler. And he learned from his father, and it was, you know, passed down that way, you know, going back to the pre-Edison days, you know, when you would just learn fiddle tunes from people in your family and from neighbors, and that's the way the music was kept alive. That was the entertainment back then. And in Bob Wills' music, no matter how slick or sophisticated his band was, or the fiddlers that he employed, whenever Wills came time to fiddle, it always brought it back to the front porch. It always sounded like that old-time frontier Texas fiddle sound, which is, you know, it's still hillbilly music, just a different kind of hills than what you got in Kentucky or Tennessee. And going back to what I was saying about country music and hillbilly music being a party, you know, Bob Wills' music always sounded like a celebration. When his career started, it was the middle of the Great Depression. People were sad. A lot of people had lost everything. And they realized that this joyous, happy music, you know, led with a fiddle, could bring happiness to so many people. And they would, sing about good times. They'd sing about parties, and they'd sing about letting loose. And boy, you sure could feel it in their songs. Here's Bob Wills with Take Me Back to Tulsa.
Who's that gal, the red dress on? Some folks call her Dinah. Stole my heart away from me, way down Louisiana. Take me back to Tulsa, I'm too young to marry. Take me back to Tulsa, I'm too young to marry. Sucks a blossom, big bee gets the honey. Little man picks a cotton, big man gets some money. Take me back to Tulsa, I'm too young to marry. Take me back to Tulsa, I'm too young to marry. Go, let's visit. If you play this, we'll try to find your car. Always wear a great big smile, never do look sour. Travel all over the country, playing by the hour. Take me back to Tulsa, I'm too young to marry. Take me back to Tulsa, I'm too young to marry. Maurice Anderson, look out there, boy. Walk and talk Susie, walk and talk Susie, walk and talk Susie, walk and talk Susie. Take me back to Tulsa, I'm too young to marry. Take me back to Tulsa, I'm too young to marry. Yeah, now. But I like to go to Tulsa, boy, I sure would. Let me off at Archer, and I'll walk down the Greenwood. Take me back to Tulsa, I'm too young to marry. Take me back to Tulsa, I'm too young to wed.
Many people may not know this, but Deke is also an accomplished author and writer. His books include Strat in the Attic and Strat in the Attic 2. But the book Deke wrote that we're all waiting for is still at the publishing house, the biography of Merle Travis. We asked Deke to tell us more about the upcoming biography, like how long did it take to write the Merle Travis book?
Chris, it took me about 3 years to write this biography of Merle Travis. I felt that it was a very important subject, and I knew that there was only going to be one shot at writing the Merle Travis life story. I mean, I doubt that anybody else is going to ever try to do this again. So I wanted to turn over every stone. I wanted to interview every 90-year-old person that was still alive. I wanted to see every single scrap of paper and photograph and everything that I possibly could. So I spent 3 years writing this book. And I feel like, for better or for worse, this is the most accurate biography, life story of Merle Travis that has ever been written or will ever be written.
There's a lot of talent out there. How did you happen to choose this particular artist, Merle Travis?
Well, you know, I've done a fair bit of writing about music, and country music in particular. And at this stage in the game, you know, there's already been a lot of writers over the last few decades who have covered a lot of ground. And pretty much all the major artists have a book out about them, or 2 or 3, you know. And it struck me as very odd that Merle Travis did not have a book. Especially since Merle did a bunch of writing on his own. He was a very good writer. I would say Merle was probably the best writer out of all of the performers that country music ever had. So it was kind of a mystery to me why there was no book. And, you know, a lot of it had to do with Merle's alcoholism. When I talked to his daughters, Merlene and Cindy, I found out that he had actually kind of started an autobiography, but he only got to a certain point in his life, and he never finished it, he never edited it, but we've included those bits that he wrote in the book, and then I took everything else and I fleshed it out. But for me, I wanted to do it because not only am I a Merle Travis fan and a country music writer, I just thought to myself, this is one of the few country music Hall of Fame artists, a major guitar innovator, a major songwriter, a major inventor of all kinds of different things that has never had a book written about him. That was the main reason. I just thought he needed to have a book written about him, and so I went and did it.
And that is what we like about you, Deke. Always ready to help hillbilly artists get the respect they deserve. Now, let's get back to the show, okay?
Okay, I'm very happy to say that we're going to play a couple of Merle Travis videos for you here so you can see some of the magic of the man himself. And what we're going to show you covers a bit of ground, so you can see that, Merle came from Kentucky, and he started out as a very legitimate sort of hillbilly artist. I mean, he had this unique style of playing the guitar, but he, when we show this first clip of Lost John where he's just playing by himself, it's pretty hillbilly. It's just him and a guitar. And then when we play this other clip, the Too Much Sugar for a Dime, he's moved out to the West Coast by that point, and he's absorbed all the Western swing that's happening out there at that time, and he's played with large bands, and he's absorbed a lot. So by the time we get around to Too Much Sugar for a Dime, he's just got all this kind of jazz and swing going on in addition to the hillbilly. So I think this is a good cross-section of Merle Travis videos to play. So let's start out with Lost John.
Well, the ugliest fella that I ever seen was long lost John from Bowling Green. No hat on his head, no shoes on his feet, begging the women for his bread and meat. One woman said, "Johnny, what can you eat?" 49 biscuit and a ham of meat, and he was long gone. He was long gone. He was long, long gone from Bowling Green. Well, he was long gone. He was long gone. He was long, long gone from Bowling Green. Old Lost John crept in a woman's house, and he crept right in just quiet as a mouse. The woman said, "Lost John, take a chair, and I'll send the porter for a bucket of beer." Never mind the bucket and never mind the beer. The hound's on my trail and I can't stay here. Got to get along. He was long gone. He was long, long gone from Bowling Green. Well, he was long gone. He was long gone. He was long, long gone from Bowling Green. Lost John standing on the railroad track was waiting for a freight train to come back. Along come train skipping and flying. He missed the cow catcher, but he caught the blind and was long gone. He was long gone. He was long, long gone from Bowling Green. Now he was long gone. He was long gone. He was long, long gone from Bowling Green. He was long gone, long gone. He was long, long gone from Bowling Green.
Man, isn't that amazing? That guy can play the guitar. He is so good. I could just watch that stuff over and over again. So now we're going to play a clip, as I was mentioning. It's sort of a Western swing type song called Too Much Sugar for a Dime. And this features a duet with his wife at the time and mother of his two daughters, Judy Hayden. And it's you can see their relationship. You can just see it in her eyes. They weren't married too much longer after this, but it's pretty entertaining. So here we go. Merle Travis and Judy Hayden, Too Much Sugar for a Dime.
look who's here if it ain't Judy Hayden. Hello, honey.
Oh, hello, Travis. What's the big boast today? Have you bought the London Bridge?
Oh, that little old thing. I just purchased Fort Knox. Now, if you'd like a new mink coat or something like
Wait a minute. That's too much sugar for a dime. You're always handing me a line.
that happens in the best convertible.
Always brag about all you got, a swimming pool and a fancy yacht. I'll bet you don't know nothing about a boat.
They float.
That's too much honey for my hide.
What's your buzzing queen bee?
All you do is pitch a lot of jive. See what I mean?
Well, I know, honey, I've done you dirt, but you can wipe your shoes on my silk shirt.
That's too much sugar for a dime. You've got too much sugar for a dime.
I got the barrels of that stuff.
Yak, yak, yak all the time.
Yak along, Travis, that's me.
Now if you could sing like Gordon McRae, King Cole, and Mel Torme, then maybe I would come down off the shelf.
I'm a Tex Ritter man myself.
That's too much candy for the cost.
I wouldn't say that.
So, do me a favor.
What's that?
Get lost.
Well, I guess I'll give the devil his due.
No, no, Trillo might refuse.
That's too much sugar for a dime. Hey, this old dime ain't no good no way.
Well, what's the matter with it?
It got a picture of Dave Barber on it.
Well, turn it over. There's a picture of Peggy Lee on the other side.
That's too much sugar for a dime.
All right, that was great, wasn't it? I love that clip. Such a really well done film. Now, Merle Travis wrote a song called 16 Tons, and it became like the biggest hit in the entire country. Tennessee Ernie Ford had the big hit version of it, but it was a legitimate sort of phenomenon around 1955, 1956, and tons of people were recording their versions of it. And so I thought it would be a nice tie-in with our Hillbilly Fever show to bring in one of our favorite hillbilly artists, Lonzo and Oscar, to do their version of Merle Travis's 16 Tons. So here we go, Lonzo and Oscar doing the Merle Travis song, 16 Tons.
Neighbors, we'd like to sing our very latest number 2 that we have here, one called 16 Ton, number 2. Some men like a gal that's short and sweet. Some like a gal that's fancy. Some like a gal that's little and cute. But I got a gal that looks like a brute. She weighs 16 tons. That's no joke. She eats like a horse and she keeps me broke. She ain't very pretty, but I don't care. She got a bone-packing hug like a grizzly bear. Well, the first time I seen her, she was pretty as could be. She wasn't very big, she was just right for me. I took one look and I said, hot dog. My jumped out like a stone frog. She weighs 16 tons, and that's no joke. She eats like a horse and she keeps me broke. She ain't very pretty, but I don't care. She got a bone-packing hug like a grizzly bear. Well, the day she was born, the doctor said, oh my, he couldn't tell if she was gonna walk or fly. But bless my soul, he must have been right. I got 16 tons of dynamite. She weighs 16 tons. grizzly bear.
All right, I hope you've enjoyed our Merle Travis segment. Keep an eye out for the book. I've turned in the book to the publisher, BMG Books. It will be out in the future. I'm not exactly sure when. I know that the COVID thing has pushed back the publication date a bit, but keep an eye out for it. I'm really excited to see it too. I'm going to play a video right now. I couldn't skip the great hillbilly dancer D. Ray White when talking about cutting loose and having fun, the central theme of this week's Hillbilly Fever episode. Now, D. Ray White was the father of legendary outlaw dancer Jesco White. And a lot of people know Jesco. Jesco's still around. But D. Ray was the originator and one of the greatest sort of old-time mountain dancers. And so we're going to play a little clip of him right now just to segue into our next segment.
I'm going to do one for you called the Groundhog. Now, I ain't saying that I'm an expert singer, but it helps me keep the rhythm and the time. But just don't pay any mind to the words you listen at or the singing part of it. But I got to do it because I ain't got no other help. It goes something like this. Let a piece of cornbread land on a shelf. Let a piece of cornbread land on a shelf. If you want any more, you can sing it yourself. Groundhog, groundhog, groundhog. Meet and a hubbard and a hide and turn. Meet and a hubbard and a hide and turn. If I be groundhog, I'll be done. Groundhog, groundhog, groundhog.
Next up is a talented musician that Stellar has hosted several times, both on stage and online. The name of the band BR549 is an homage to comedian Junior Samples and his work on Hee Haw. Chuck Mead was one of the founders of BR549. Deke is here to introduce everybody's good buddy, Chuck Mead.
All right, as mentioned, our next guest is going to be the one and only Chuck Mead from BR549. Now, Chuck and I go way, way, way back because we both grew up in the Midwest. I grew up in Columbia, Missouri. He grew up in Kansas. In fact, if you go to Kansas, you'll see the name Mead everywhere. It's a very, very famous name back there. And Chuck moved to Nashville and he formed this band called BR549. And I have to give them credit because, you know, in the midst of all the sort of Garth Brooks era and all that, they actually got signed to a major label calling themselves a hillbilly band. And I really think that they were the first act out there to start using this term again, hillbilly music. And so I'm really happy to have Chuck on the show today and get his thoughts about what is hillbilly and, you know, what does he like about it and what videos he's going to play for us. So I'm going to bring him on right now. Chuck Mead.
Yeah, somebody say howdy to me. And howdy back to you. So glad to be in your living room. Thank you for coming to visit with us tonight on the Marty Stewart Show. Well, Eddie Stubbs, some weeks it's a hillbilly week, some weeks it's a country week, some weeks it's a honky-tonk week. It's all the above this week. We got you all covered. Chris Scruggs and Chuck Mead, big, big stars. Make them feel welcome, my boys.
Well, Cherokee chief as he dances along does the Indian boogie to a white man's song. Hey ho Alina, hey ho Alina, hey ho Alina, hey ho Alina. Singing hey ho Alina, whoa whoa with tonight. Hey. Well, he dances over here and he dances over there and he dances with a woman called a standing band. Hey ho Alina, hey ho Alina, hey ho Alina, hey ho Alina. Singing hey ho Alina, whoa whoa with tonight. Hey, oh, get him on, yeah. sink you to the ground. And the tom-tom beat is so big and proud. Hey, oh, Alina. Hey, oh, Alina. Hey, oh, Alina. Hey, oh, Alina. Singing, hey, oh, Alina. Whoa, whoa, Norwegian. Hey, Chris, play that whiskey bowl.
Somebody say howdy!
Thanks, Deke, for that very gracious introduction. Yes, I grew up in Kansas, but my dirty secret is that I was born in Missouri, Nevada, Missouri, which is southwest Missouri, just north of Joplin, around the Ozarks. So I grew up with a lot of hillbilly imagery. In fact, I remember one day they were talking about ethnic backgrounds in grade school, and my sister raised her hand and said, "My mom's half hillbilly," and she really is. So to me, hillbilly didn't take on a bad connotation. I know it did. It had negative sort of stereotypes, I guess. But, you know, the guy in the Mountain Dew bottle, I thought that was cool. When I was a little kid, we went to Silver Dollar City, and you rode a train around the whole amusement park. And at one point, a bunch of hillbillies stopped you, you know, like train robbers. But they didn't take anything. They were friendly hillbillies. So this brings me to the first clip that I want to play. It's hillbilly music that's, you know, sort of Western swing-ish, sort of rockabilly-ish, done by one of my favorite artists of all time, which is Carl Smith. Carl Smith was like the biggest Grand Ole Opry star right after Hank Williams died. He had tons of great hits. He was one of my favorite people, and I got to meet him, got to be friends with him. And he was telling me how everybody in Nashville really hated all the country singers in his era, in the early 50s, late 40s. And he said that anybody from the town of Nashville, if you were walking down the street and they knew you were in the music business, or you had a, you know, cowboy suit on or something, they knew you were a singer, they would literally walk across the street to not have to walk past you on the sidewalk. He told me that the only people in town here that liked the country singers were the bankers and the Cadillac dealerships. With that, here's one of my favorite clips from the JAXhideaway collection. Please, this is Carl Smith and Go Boy Go.
Go boy go when the time is right. Take advantage of the pretty moonlight. Don't you leave your gal, cause you're too slow. When you get sick, go boy go. Hug her tight with all your might. Be different from the rest. And when she's near, whisper dear, hey, the one that I love best. Go boy go, love is easy to play. All you gotta know is the tricks. I'm afraid her eyes will tear. When you go, when you get sick, go boy go. All you gotta know is tricks of a traitor eyes will tell. all your might be lifted from rest. And when she's near, whisper dear, hey, the one that I love best. Oh, all you gotta know is tricks. I'm afraid her eyes can tell when to go. When you get to sit, oh boy, go. Come on.
So I guess, you know, to me, hillbilly's a little bit different than redneck. Redneck seemed like a little meaner, and hillbillies just want to be left alone, left to their own devices. I think in the 60s there was still, you know, that mentality of, you know, we're playing hillbilly music, and it was still not very mainstream to be a country singer. And this is evident. My next clip that I want to play is one of my favorite artists, of course, probably the most realized country singer that there ever was, and that's George Jones. But he got a little of his style from his sideman and band leader and bass player, a guy named Johnny Paycheck. And they're singing together on this clip. They sang really great together. They blended really well. And they later on in the 70s made a record together, a cocaine-fueled. You know, you don't want to see hillbillies on cocaine. It's not pretty. It really isn't. But it happened. But this is before all that happened. This is when it was still just pills. So, without any further ado, my next clip is "The Love Bug" by George Jones, backed up by Johnny Paycheck.
Chicks to myself, and then suddenly it happened, a funny little feeling I felt. Yeah, I tried to outrun it, but it finally caught up to me. But how could I run from something that I can't see? Oh, that little bitty teeny weeny thing they call the love bug. Nobody's ever seen it, but it's got the whole world shook up. It all started with a little bitty kiss and a hug. A little bitty teeny weeny thing they call the love bug. Style. But I lost that race by a good old country mile. I was walking all around with my head held way up high, and then it fooled me, hit me, really took me by surprise. Oh, that little bitty teeny weeny thing they call the love bug. Nobody's ever seen it, but it's got the whole world shook up. It all started with a little bitty kiss and a hug. A little bitty